Well, as promised, today is the finale of the most overrated, underrated, and trophy potential bass lakes. The two previous episodes I've done, I did smallmouth, I did spotted bass. So today we're going to do largemouth. And this one I found to be a lot more difficult than the smallmouth and spotted bass. It just seems like there are really good fisheries all across the country for largemouth. And, I tried to stick to tournament bodies of water. I know specifically when it comes to trophy potential lakes, there are some phenomenal lakes all over the country that kick out trophy size fish for that part of the country, whether that's down south where 10 pounders happen or up north where 6 pounder is considered a trophy. It was difficult to come up with my list. And this one I think is probably will be the most disputed of them all, which is fine. I mean, I encourage that. Again, this is just my opinion. It's based off of my personal experience on each of these lakes. And I realize in some instances I've been to bodies of water that did not perform for me or produce for me, but have a history of producing giant bags of fish. But, again, it's my opinion. So we're going to start again with the most overrated lakes. And man, I mean, I know fishing really is a seasonal thing, but what I'm looking for in my good lakes is a place you can go to and catch good quality fish year round. And I feel like I feel like some of these places kick out really good bags in the spring, and that's it. So the first overrated lake I'm going to start with is Lake Guntersville. I realize there are a lot of people out there that absolutely love Lake Guntersville. But in my experience, and I've been there probably 7 or 8 times now, I'm going to say the first time was probably, like 2006, 2007, right during like the prime peak of Guntersville, like mega bags. And it was definitely better back then. I personally feel like the amount of pressure and some of the things that have gone on with the water there, whether I've heard different stories regarding things that could have potentially happened to the lake that had an effect on the fish. But, over the last 5 years, for sure, I feel like the quality of fishing has not been good. The size of the fish is good when you catch fish, but it is not by any means a lake you can go to and easily catch a limit's worth of fish. And it's a lake you go to where I feel like you catch the fish one day doing something and you're like, I'm on this great pattern, or I have a great spot, and you go back to that same spot or run the same pattern the next day and never have a bite. It really is a confusing lake to me. And I don't know if that's because the pressure, that fish just move a lot. And I've had really good days there. I mean, I've caught the biggest bag of fish I've ever caught in FLW competition, which was 25 and some change, and yeah, I think it was 25 and a half pounds. It was something like that. Anyways, it was a great day on the water. The crazy part is that day, it was day 2 of a Toyota Series event. The first day I had like 12 and a half pounds, and I caught probably 20 keepers. The next day I went out and I think I caught 7 keepers and had 25 and a half pounds. So that's how that lake is. And it's got a reputation that just, it to me, it sounds like, people expect to go there and just pound on fish. And it's not that way. It's not that way at all. So that is by far my number one most overrated lake in the country. I cringe when I see it on the schedule, as much as it's probably the one lake in the country outside of the upper Midwest that I know really well too, because I've been there so much. And it's just a frustrating lake. My second choice and it's one of my favorite fisheries in the country, is the Mississippi River in La Crosse. The fishing in La Crosse, in the La Crosse area, is still good, but it continues to go down, I feel like, every year. And I don't know, I mean, my assumption is that's mostly due to fishing pressure. There are more tournament anglers, more tournaments than there have ever been in that general area. It's got national recognition now, where you've got national tournaments coming. Last year, I feel like there were like 3 or 4 big level tournaments, and that has a toll on the fishery. 15 years ago, you could go out there and catch, 50 to 100 fish, and pretty much everywhere you threw, you expected to get a bite. And it seems like now the fish are definitely in more specific locations. They're not as grouped up as they used to be. You could go in the past and catch 10 fish on 10 casts out of one spot. And I don't feel like that happens as much. It definitely still does happen. Don't get me wrong. Like, you can really get on them still good out there, but it is nowhere near as good as it used to be. And I feel like the rest of the anglers around the country think of the Mississippi River, upper Mississippi River, La Crosse area as one of those places you go and just throw a frog all day and, have your arm ripped off. And it is not that way anymore, unfortunately. And it's one of my favorite fisheries. I still highly recommend it. It's good fishing, but it's beautiful scenery. It's a great, La Crosse is one of my favorite cities. It's just an awesome area. It's a great place to go, but it's to the point where I feel like it's a little bit overrated. My last overrated lake is Lake Toho in Florida. That's another fishery that has the potential to kick out 10-pounders and be this phenomenal fishery. But man, it just seems like it's so hit or miss. It's not an easy place to go and catch a limit of fish. It's a difficult fishery. I'm going to separate Toho from Kissimmee. I think Kissimmee is really a very good lake. I think Toho is not as good as Kissimmee, and oftentimes I think they get wrapped up into one, and because of that, overall it's a good fishery. But Lake Kissimmee, in my opinion, is significantly better than Lake Toho, and Lake Toho is wrapped up as my third most overrated lake for largemouth in the country. So switching over to what I would consider 3 of the best, not necessarily underrated, but again, like the best largemouth lakes in the country for quantity and quality. Again, I know I haven't been to every lake in the country, but at this point in my career, I feel like I've been to every major tournament body of water and have a pretty good feel for the best lakes in the country. And some of these lakes are go through cycles, and right now are in a good cycle. So the 3 lakes that I've chosen, the first one is Sam Rayburn. As much as I don't necessarily like going to Sam Rayburn, there are very few lakes in the country that receive the amount of pressure that Sam Rayburn gets and has the total number of fish that lake produces. I've found several scenarios, and this happens in every tournament, where, for most guys in the tournament, this is what happens. You find a spot, and you can sit there and catch 25 fish out of that spot. The difference between a good day and a bad day there is, well, the 25 fish that I had were all in the 2-pound class, whereas, somebody over on the next spot over had a spot that had 3-pounders or 4-pounders mixed in. And that is really what's like separates success out there. And I realize, that lake still, you can struggle out there, but in general, overall, that lake has a phenomenal fishery. It's got so much structure and cover for those fish to get in that they're just able to maintain the quality of the fishery with the pressure that they get. And I've had some good tournaments there and I've struggled there, but overall, it's a phenomenal fishery. The number of fish there, the chance at 9 and 10 pounders is definitely, it's got to be one of the best places in the country to do that. So Sam Rayburn is definitely one of my top largemouth fisheries. Next up, I've got Okeechobee, and this might change a little bit. We've got a tournament there. Our first tournament of the season is there in the middle of February. And I've heard it's changed a little bit from previous years based on some hurricanes and the high water ruining some of the vegetation growth. But there are very few places in the country where you can go sit with a group of boats and everyone just pounds on them. Like, it's a ridiculously good fishery. I don't know where those fish come from. You just sit there. I mean, there was one tournament there. I think I finished in the 30s and I had like 18 pounds a day. And there were probably 60 boats up on the North Shore, and everyone had 16 to 20 pounds. I mean, it was just unbelievable, these fish that were coming out of nowhere. And, you know, even when you're not on the quality of fish there, my first tournament ever on Okeechobee, I thought I had a good spot. I probably caught 75 fish each day, and I had ended up with like 8 or 9 pounds and finished in the bottom of the pack. But that's how it is there. You can go and find just absolutely giant numbers of fish. There may not be big ones mixed in, but there are so many bass in that lake. It's pretty ridiculous. And, you know, whether you're going for fun, whether you're going for a tournament, or whether you're going to catch a giant, that's definitely one of the best places to go in the country. And it's a really unique fishery as well, being that it's like a giant marsh, really. So Okeechobee's up there. My third lake, I've got to go with Lake Eufaula. I think that potentially is fishing the best in the country right now for just best quality and numbers of big fish. I'm excited to get there. We're going there in May, and man, it's got some really impressive weights. I feel like it's on the upswing right now. There were, I'm gonna say, probably about 10 years ago, it definitely had some struggles, but man, that fishery has come back. And that's when you want to hit a fishery, when it's in its prime and the numbers are booming. That's some of the best fishing. And I think, you know, right now Lake Eufaula is definitely in one of those upswings, and you should try to take advantage of it while you can, because it's not necessarily going to last forever. So moving on, my 3 trophy lakes. This was really the one I struggled with, because there are so many lakes that have a reputation of putting out a 10-pounder or bigger, and there's a lot of good lakes. The first one is obviously Lake Chickamauga. As much as I don't necessarily care for the lake, it produces giant fish, and it's produced for me probably 4 of my top 5 all-time biggest largemouth. I've got 2 10.5-pounders. One of them was in a tournament, and I didn't even win big bass. I got beat out by Daryl Davis, had a 12-pounder. It's just got giant fish in it, and they get those giant bloated bellies in the pre-spawn period. I don't know why that place is booming like it is, or produces the giant fish that it does, but it's got to be recognized as, a place that really produces some of the biggest fish in the country right now. So that's an easy one. I struggled with the rest. Now I'm going to say Clear Lake in California should be recognized as one of the best big fish lakes. It's got the potential to produce 10-plus pounders. It does produce 10-plus pounders, and it has a pile of fish in like that 5 to 8-pound range. I mean, it's got probably one of the highest percentages of fish in that category in the entire country. I do think Clear Lake is on a downswing right now from the heyday 10 or 15 years ago. But even having said that, it still is by far one of the best big fish factories in the country. The last one I'm going to go with, and again, this is where I feel like there's got to be, 15 other lakes that could be mentioned. And I know there's some like that Sharon Harris that produce giant bags of fish, but one place that I have probably seen the 2 or 3 biggest bass I've ever personally seen in the water, in the wild, was at the Harris chain of lakes in Florida. I've seen 2 fish on beds there that were easily 12 pounds. Just, I mean, that didn't even look right to see them in the water. And every time we go there, there are fish, you know, in that multiple fish caught in that 8 to 10 pound range. It's a great fishery. You know, there are a lot of big fish tournaments that go out of that body of water, and when you look at the overall weights and what size class fish it takes to cash a check in a big fish tournament, it's pretty ridiculous. I think it would not surprise me if there's like more 8+ pound fish in that lake, in that chain of lakes, than anywhere else in the country. It can be a difficult place to fish, but it's got the fish in it to be considered one of the best trophy lakes in the country. And because of that, if you're a big fish hunter, it's a place you want to consider. So that's it. That's my largemouth lakes. I definitely, like I said, I think there's a lot of room for discussion on this one. I think I easily could have missed the lake, but you know, in general, these are my thoughts on it. So, you know, if you disagree with me or you think I missed a lake, please leave a comment. Let me know about it. I'll definitely engage in discussion with you to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from with respect to these lakes. But otherwise, if you enjoyed it, just leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and maybe we'll have a few more like this coming up. Maybe we'll do like a top Wisconsin lake series or something like that. But I enjoy doing this. I think these are fun to do, and they create good discussion. There's no right or wrongs, just opinions. So thanks for watching, guys.